Welcome to the Saturated Industry podcast with theoretical physicist Steve and guy who could barely remember the last thing he said, me, Danny. This week it's Ant-Man, and that theoretical physicist intro I made is going to be important later because this movie has a lot of theoretical physics
and inconsistent
theoretical physics. But yeah, so this is one of the first, not the first, no, because Guardians of the Galaxy definitely had its own personality, and Winter Soldier had a real different feel to it than any of the other Marvel movies. But this one, possibly because of Edgar Wright's influence before he was ousted,
maybe, yeah,
just had.
It feels like it's in its own genre.
Yeah, it feels like it's a heist movie first. So where Captain America, like Winter Soldier was a superhero movie that was mostly an espionage movie, and Guardians of the Galaxy was a superhero movie that was mostly a kind of intergalactic family romp.
Yeah.
This feels like a heist movie that just so happens to have a guy who can shrink in it.
Yeah, it feels like a heist movie that would happen in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Because there are superpowered people in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, and it's the first time that anybody has acknowledged the question that all fans have had since the Avengers came out, which is, when something crazy is happening that might endanger the world, why don't we just call the Avengers? Our first instinct should always be to call the Avengers.
Yeah, this movie to me has a lot of self-awareness of where it is in, like, that it is a Marvel movie. Okay. It feels like it knows all of the things that we talk about. It references in the movie itself, and like sort of jokes about them sometimes. It's great.
Yeah. And it's real. It's self-awareness, but it's done in such a way that all of the characters, it makes all of the characters feel more real. It's like, in acknowledging how outrageous the universe has become, they're actually helping us relate better to the characters, because it was getting a bit too po-faced. It was getting a bit too, everybody's taking all this shit so seriously, but come on, guys.
This is insanity.
This is bonkers. So yeah, it was kind of a breath of fresh air. And like, I'm gonna say, like, right off the bat, I'm so disappointed that Edgar Wright didn't get to finish this movie, because the Edgar Wright scenes, which are very obvious, the kind of the very distinct Edgar Wright editing style and kind of Edgar Wright sense of humor and Edgar Wright sense of progression and flow, are here in places, most notably the Michael Pena vignettes.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the movie is kind of a more typical Marvel movie, and it's a shame. Like, I don't know, obviously nobody knows exactly why it was like creative differences. I assume it was because Edgar Wright wanted to make an Edgar Wright movie, because all of his movies share a very specific style, which is something that the Marvel, whoever's in charge, ought to have known when they hired Edgar Wright. Like, he's gonna make an Edgar Wright movie, not whatever you want him to make. And it's even more, it's like doubly depressing, because like 3 movies later, they gave Thor to Taika Waititi, who made the most ridiculous Thor movie anyone's ever seen, which turned out to be the best Thor movie of all 3. Like, oh god. Yeah,
it seems a bit like they don't know what they're doing here. Like, one hand doesn't know what the other hand's doing.
Yeah, it's a shame, because it's one of those. It's again the same as what was the last one? Yeah, it's like Ultron. This is a movie made by someone who could have made this movie great. Could have made this movie one of the best movies you've ever seen in your life, and somebody interfered with that man.
Yes, I get that feeling as well. There's so many good scenes in this movie, and then so many scenes that are just par for the course, almost.
And the characters oscillate wildly between, like, really well realized, like the villain in this, despite it being a kind of this is one of the movies that you know from the start isn't going to have a bearing on the rest of the MCU. Like, this story happens here and it only matters here. So the villain didn't need to matter that much, is what I'm saying. And despite that, I think Darren Cross is a really well realized villain. Like, he's not really a foil for Scott, who's our protagonist. He's more like his beef is with Hank. Yeah. But like, he's not just a maniac, and he's not just a greedy capitalist. He does have a genuine. There's like a vulnerability to where sometimes he'll be talking to Hank, and there's a scene where he's like shows up in Hank's house wearing an "I'm gonna murder you" outfit
because he was gonna
murder him, and they have a conversation, and we find out later that the reason he didn't kill him is because he saw that Hope was there, and he
He wasn't ready to kill Hope yet.
Yeah, so he left it. But as he was leaving, because obviously he had come here to kind of countenance his relationship with Hank, who he saw as a father at one point in his life, and we didn't really get like that part was underdeveloped. That we didn't really get to know how close they had ever been, because there was a little too much kind of orbited Hank, because once again Marvel got fucking Michael Douglas, got an incredible actor to play this character who isn't really like, he's not Ant-Man, like he's not Ant-Man anymore. He was Ant-Man, but he's not our Ant-Man. He's not the Ant-Man in the MCU.
Yeah.
So obviously he had to be the center of the universe in this movie, and so much orbits him that it's difficult for anybody else to get any development. And I feel like the Darren Cross character suffers because of that, because you get it from what you get of him in the movie. I feel like he's actually a pretty decent villain. Like, he's got a genuine gripe as well as a bit of a mania to him.
Yeah.
His ambition parallels, like, it's a mirror. I know it's always mirrors, but like, it's a mirror to Hank Pym's ambition. Like, he literally is just trying to do what Hank Pym has already done. Hank Pym considers himself above it all. Like, nobody is worthy.
He's done that. He's been there. He's done that. And now no one should have that power anymore, because he's realized the mistakes of his ways.
And Darren Cross probably, like, maybe instead of having Hank Pym's flashback, maybe we should have gotten Darren Cross's flashback to like a fresh-faced young scientist who was taken in by this guy
and then just spurned.
And then sort of the same as Hope. Like, his wife died and he just cast everybody out, and then we would understand. Like, then Darren Cross would be more of a sympathetic edge to him.
Yeah.
Because that's all that was missing. I feel like he was a decent character, and he would have made a really good villain if we just had a little bit of sympathy for him somewhere, because there was like hints of it in there.
Yeah, so I didn't think he was a good villain.
Okay.
Because of those reasons. Because he just seemed like an evil maniac to me. His motivations were sort of unclear, besides I just want to have power. Because he's making the suit, and then he's not doing it for a good reason. He's selling it to Hydra, who are toppling governments. And he knows they're toppling governments, and he's like, I'm going to be the most powerful man in the world, which is, like, it's just not a motivation that I can empathize with at all.
Sure.
And he feels spurned by his mentor, but that doesn't drive you to, now I need to rule the world. But if we had more development of him, or more flashbacks of him, he has the core there to be a good villain.
Yeah.
But it's just like, and he's confident. He's a confident villain as well, which feels so wasted to me.
Yeah.
Like, because he sets this huge trap up and it goes off perfectly nearly. And he's like, I've captured you, and now, like, what you did played into my hand because I've sold my stuff for double.
Yeah, I've got your suit too.
Yeah, I've got your suit too. Now I've sold everything for double because you showed it can defeat the Avengers, and then it's just sort of wasted because he then turns into a maniac.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, and then they have that kind of last minute, the particles are messing with your head, which I didn't know he had ever shrunk before.
Yeah, they laid the groundwork earlier in the film where they like explain what the helmet's for, but he hasn't shrunk before. Maybe the particles are affecting him because he's been working with the particles for so long, but still, it's weak. Yeah,
it is weak, and I know what you mean, and I agree to an extent that I agree, not even to an extent, I agree. Like, he is underdeveloped as a character, but I feel like everything was there to make him a really great villain, and there were scenes in this movie that set him up a lot. Like, there's once or twice he even says to Hank, like, we could have done this together. I wanted to do this together. At one point, we were doing this together, and you abandoned me, and nobody is telling me why.
Yeah, and he keeps asking Hank again and again, are you proud of me?
Yeah.
Are you proud of me?
Exactly. Like, he's got this kind of father complex with Hank. And also, in terms of, like, wanting to be the most powerful man in the world, again, it would have been a really great sort of Peter showing up at, like, Osborn Labs moment. If Darren had showed up at Hank Pym's lab and taken in and made an assistant, Hank Pym would have been the most powerful man in the world. He is the guy that S.H.I.E.L.D. at the time went to with referrals for, like, we need you to stop nuclear missiles.
That's true, yeah.
And so Darren Cross wanted that, and he thought that he was on the track, that he was going to be, at some point, Hank Pym's right-hand man, and then Hank Pym abandoned him.
Yeah.
And so the rest of his life was about trying to acquire power the same way that Hank Pym was. His only example, the only thing he had to.
Yeah.
None of that is here. This is all imaginary. But I filled in those gaps. And sometimes, and it's going to be our whipping boy at the end of time, but in the Dark World, I don't give a fuck what Malekith's motivation was, and
Yeah.
he was played terribly, he was written terribly, and everything about the execution of that character was boring and pointless.
Yeah.
In this movie, I was willing to make the leap because I like that actor, and I did, you know, he gave enough in the first couple acts of the movie, enough kind of vulnerability, and like he wasn't just pure evil. It felt like, and his relationship with Hope, like when you have like dinner with Hope or something, and he would ask her sort of leading questions, being like, "Your father's a maniac, right?
Yeah.
Your father's the bad guy, right?" You know, like he really needed her to agree with him because she's the only person who could relate to him on that way.
Yeah.
And again, it wasn't developed properly and it didn't hit, but I was, for some reason, in this movie, and it's happened before, we've talked about it before, that like in fucking Iron Man 2, like sometimes things don't hit and you're just not willing to go the extra mile to kind of fill in those gaps in your imagination. In this movie I was.
Yeah.
Possibly because of the kind of Edgar Wright influenced flow and progression of the movie, where it did feel like I was swept up. I was swept up in this movie a lot more than I was in, say, for example, Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
Which is a very similar movie about a man's past coming back to haunt him
Yeah.
because a guy built something that he once built, and you know, there's only like 2 or 3 stories in Marvel. And then Guardians of the Galaxy, which are in a whole fucking universe of their own. But Michael Pena is the master of exposition.
Oh
my god. This movie would not work without Michael Pena. I think it's a crime that he is a sidekick, that he's a side character, that he's like a...
He's got to be more of a main character in the next one. Like, he has to be.
I want him to become like Termite Man, or just insert insect here man. Somebody just gives him a suit, or even if he doesn't get to become a hero of his own, that something happens to Scott and they give the suit to Michael Pena
to save him,
and he gets to go on a mission, or he gets to fight in a battle, and he's like doing it, like he's helping as best he can, but he's making all these funny little jokes on the side and talking to everybody. He's like, please, somebody, goddammit, shut that guy up. Oh, he's just so good.
He is.
And so well chosen by, I assume, Edgar Wright to do what I assume are the Edgar Wright scenes of just all of these different people doing Michael Pena impressions as he tells the most rambling... I guess what I like about him most is that he tells rambling, digressive stories that seem to have no point. But he, being a fictional character written by someone who knows how to write a story, gets to like wrap up and come to a point where some people don't get that.
No, both of those stories that are in this movie, it gets to the end of it and I was following along, and then at some point I realised I don't know what was going on anymore. It's like, okay, that makes sense. Wait, what? What? Okay, now the story's over. What's going on again?
Why are they playing baseball in this scene? He is an underappreciated gem.
His optimistic delivery of all the bad news that he tells Scott once Scott gets out of prison.
Oh yeah, my dad died.
No, my mom died.
Oh, my mom died.
My dad got
deported. But I gotta keep the van.
It's just amazing.
Yeah, and he's great at, like, you immediately get that these guys have been friends forever. Like, they've known each other.
Yeah, well, they're cellies. They were cellmates.
In the prison?
In the prison.
Oh,
and
okay.
Luis, Michael Pena, gets out a year earlier because Scott's like, oh, it's like, what happened to your eye? Oh, the...
Peachy, gave him the scar as well.
The scar. And it's like, oh yeah, I still got mine.
Yeah. And then I guess they all go live together in an apartment with the other 2 guys.
Yeah, because...
I
mean, it's rough for ex-cons, I guess. So it's like, I've got an apartment, you can come crash with me until you get your feet, and then he just ends up working with Baxter Robbins.
And crime, yeah.
Crime.
Great recidivism rate there, San Francisco.
Yeah.
But we've skipped over. Well, I skipped over it on purpose because I think it was wasted and it should have been Darren Cross's flashback. But there's a flashback to a kind of history of S.H.I.E.L.D. moment where. We don't know what happened, but Hank Pym kind of storms in and says, like, you've been fucking around with my particle.
You've been trying to replicate it.
Yeah, replicate my particle. And, well, when I say we don't know what happened, he seems to have some sort of problem with S.H.I.E.L.D. now, like an existing problem already.
There's some already beef there.
And so they're like, we want, like, Hank, just come back in the fold.
Yeah,
like,
we're the good guys.
Yeah, we're trying to do the right thing, and you could help us with that, so why are you being a douchebag? And then one guy brings up his wife, and he socks him. He like smashes
Evil Hydra Man, because I can't remember his name.
Oh, Mitchell something? Yeah, like Evil Hydra Man.
He smashes his head
into the table, which sets up a great callback later. And and then you get to see sort of an older Peggy
and Howard
Stark sort of I guess, kind of being the grandparents of Shield, because like this isn't like 50s Shield. This is like 80s Shield. This is like Nick Fury's got to be taken over soon. I can't actually remember what the year was that Alexander Pierce said that they had the Nicaragua thing.
Yeah, true.
But I wonder, like, I'm sure like there's probably a total gaff there, but
yeah,
he had to be taking over soon.
Yeah. Yeah. My question here is, Evil Hydra Man, is he working with Hydra back in the 80s? Or do you think he turned to Hydra at some point?
He's anybody. I mean, like, how does this Hydra thing work? Because apparently they've had a head in a computer since the 50s.
Yeah.
Spreading Hydra. So yeah, I don't know. But also, like, it's a case of there was another guy who I was like, has he always been Hydra, or was he convinced? The Senator Stern.
Yeah.
Like, this guy, I would assume, before he was ever Hydra, he was probably already the kind of guy who just wanted the biggest toys so he could smash everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would have been the guy who somebody who was already Hydra in S.H.I.E.L.D. would have went to and said, hey, I heard you want to do things this way. Well, there's a lot of us who think like that.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, no, the point I was trying to make about the whole flashback thing is that I wish there was more of that. I wish there was more of the history of S.H.I.E.L.D., of the history of the Avengers Initiative, of like, because, you know, and it's like in the trailer for Infinity War, like, there was an idea, and like the Nick Fury speech, there was an idea about, or like, you know, that we're going to put together a team of special individuals. You already had a team, or you had at least two, especially you had Ant-Man and the Wasp in the 80s, you know, like, so this is not your first run-in with enhanced individuals, and I assume Hank and Wasp aren't the only superpowered people in the past either. And I'm not saying that I want like a kind of hero of the week, like every movie just drop back and say, hey, there used to be another guy who was super strong like you. But it's great world building, and just having Howard Stark and Peggy Carter in there just kind of adds a gravitas to the movie somehow.
Yeah, it does. It also sets up really nicely the relationship that Hank Pym has with S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, and with Stark.
And with Stark specifically,
because he makes Scott makes a reference to that in the Civil War fight, right? Where he's like, Hank Pym always told me, or like Dr. Pym, whatever. Yeah. Pym always told me not to trust a Stark, and Tony's like, Pym? What? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So first of all, and another reason why Cross is kind of a maniac and not a great villain, Cross can already shrink stuff. Like, in the movie, they show him shrinking things, like objects. And
he can shrink inorganic things.
Inorganic, like inanimate objects.
Yeah, so like he shrinks an engine, he shrinks like other like things.
But that's not enough for him. He's not satisfied with that.
No, and he's obsessed with the Ant-Man suit because he's found like archival footage and heard hints of it.
But he's going on about, I can't sell half a breakthrough. False. You can sell shrinking things.
Yeah.
If you can properly shrink, and I assume rebigulate, an engine block or whatever, that's useful to somebody.
Even if you're not rebigulating it. Like, even if you're just like, you build a computer and then you shrink it. That would revolutionize everything. You build a battery, then you shrink it. Oh my god.
So I don't know anything about science or economics, but I know that there's definitely a value in being able to shrink things, whether they're organic or not.
Miniaturization is in a huge area of research.
So that straight away was like, again, that's something that would have been served better had we had a flashback to the fact that he's obsessed with Hank and with Ant-Man and with becoming Hank, and he wants to be Hank. Like, he didn't get the opportunity to be Hank's sidekick, now he wants to be Hank. But then he goes on, like, Hank has been invited. Has he been invited? He shows up.
No,
anyway.
Hank just shows up.
Hank just shows up because Darren Cross is having like an exhibition or whatever.
Yeah,
like he's demonstrating.
He's revealing the Yellow Jacket.
Yeah, and his technology in general. And as part of it, he has this video where he's like here's some of the uses.
This is the most evil video I've ever seen.
Like, all it was missing was the Hydra logo at the end.
Yeah.
But one line that stuck out to me was that this technology can be used by kind of the good guys, like American forces or the forces of good or whatever, to protect their interests abroad. Now, since the target market for the movie is America, and the target market we're supposed to infer that the target market for his technology is the American military, does America not already protect its interests with relative impunity worldwide?
Yeah,
and they don't need to miniaturize their guys and be secretive about it. Like, they literally just start wars wherever they want.
Well, I think they want to miniaturize their guys so that they can do it even better. And that, I guess that's his angle.
It's just so much
Or it's
war.
just, wry commentary on the American military-industrial complex.
Possibly. What I did like though is that in the Yellow Jacket chamber, there's like a honeycomb motif going on,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's something they didn't need
Yeah,
to do.
the vault, the Yellow Jacket vault is
It's
very
like a beehive.
Yeah.
That's a
And-
nifty idea.
pretty over-engineered and awesome looking.
Yeah, it's completely unnecessary. And I like we talked about the kind of the Death Star tunnel that Scott has to jump into. That for some reason there's just this ant-sized tunnel that
Yeah.
leads from somewhere into the vaults.
Yeah.
I
The
don't-
only thing I could think of is maybe Cross was even more competent than we thought, and he built the entire vault to trap the
Literally,
Ant-Man
yeah,
suit.
so that Ant-Man would try and get in. That's that's where I feel like there was a better movie in here that could have been made. And who knows, maybe Edgar Wright was going to make it. But what actually happens is Scott, through a Michael Pena montage, gets the job.
Yeah, so he gets fired from Baskin Robbins.
Because
And
Baskin
like,
Robbins finds out.
yeah, the important thing here is that
Baskin Robbins don't play, man.
Scott has a family,
Yes,
and
a daughter.
he's got an ex-wife and a daughter, and he loves his daughter. And it feels really authentic, their relationship,
Yeah.
where just like he's sort of like
He shows up at the birthday party completely uninvited and like legally not
yeah,
technically allowed
so
to
he's,
be there.
he's towing the line here,
Yeah.
well, really stepping over the line. But he wants to be there, he wants to contribute, but he just can't.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to make good decisions, but he's doing them, or he's making bad decisions for the right reasons.
Yeah, well, he makes a good decision. Like, he gets a job at Baskin Robbins. Obviously, he lied on his application form. Then they found out that
Yeah.
he'd been in prison, fired immediately.
Baskin Robbins always finds out.
Baskin Robbins don't play, man.
That's also a good point of like self-referential humor that really lands in this movie, and then for me doesn't land in other movies like Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where they keep referencing the same thing over and over again.
Oh, the throwback jokes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty good. But yeah, so he basically Michael Pena immediately, like, he gets home from prison, and on that day, Michael Pena offers him, like, we're gonna break into somewhere, and we need a burger.
I mean, even while, like, when they're driving away from the prison, he's like, I got some really good guys, so
Yeah.
they're really skilled, and Scott's like, no, I'm out.
And then he sort of he literally crunches the numbers. He's got like a
Yeah.
pen and paper, and he's writing out how much money it will take for him to pay back enough child support
And get an apartment and
get an
everything.
apartment and kind of put his life together enough that his ex-wife will consider allowing him visitation. And it's like over a year it will take just to get to a level where she might consider it. Like, and he's like, no, that's not
That's
gonna
too
do.
long.
Which is, it makes sense. Like, and that's there's an argument to be made that whether you're like a fundamentally good or bad person, once you've been in prison, your life gets like exponentially more difficult to live in such a way that will keep you out of prison in future.
Yeah.
And this is exactly that, because he makes a bad decision here, because obviously the right thing to do is wait a year. It sucks and it's hard, and she won't understand, which is the heartbreaking thing.
Yeah.
But that's the right thing to do, and he's like, no, I'm gonna get the money now, see her now, and deal with everything else later.
Yeah.
And so he takes the job, and the job is to like rob this old guy's place who has a safe and it's gone for a week.
Yeah, and he's living off his golden parachute.
Yeah. And that's all that Scott knows about the job. Like, basically he hears the whole story from Michael Pena, gets nothing from it, and then they're like, old guy has a safe, gone for a week. He's like, that's it, that's all we need. Old guy.
I got nothing from that Michael Pena story either. I followed about halfway through and then it got lost.
And so he takes the job.
Yeah, well, what important here is we get some backstory on Scott's crime and what he did before to land him in prison in the first place. Because being in prison, you could be in prison for anything.
Yeah.
But he went for, and like, he blew the whistle on some company he was
working for.
doing some bad stuff. And then he got fired for it, and nothing happened to the company, so he decided to break in and hack their computers and fix the what they did.
Yeah, well, it was like one of those companies that probably during the 2007 crash or whatever, all the billionaires bailed out golden parachutes and everybody else got screwed, and so he hacked into the company, took all of their money and redistributed it to all the people who lost money as a result of the company, and then he went to prison. And so he's a good guy, ladies and gents.
So he broke the law, but like in an
In a Robin
altruistic,
Hood kind of way,
Robin
yeah.
Hood kind of way.
So it's okay for us to be behind him in
Yeah,
this endeavor, is what they're trying to say. And then also that they establish that this is an old guy living off a golden parachute. So it's the perfect Scott Lang mark. But anyway, it turns out, now this is where I wish the movie had gone a different way, because it turns out that the Michael Pena story was actually a really effective cover for the fact that Michael Douglas hired Scott Lang, like Hank Pym hired Scott Lang to break into his house to see if he could.
Yeah, or like put the tip out there, hoping that Scott would pick up on it and break into the house.
I wish it had been happenstance. I wish that he had broken into this guy's place, done a bunch of really clever stuff to get all the way to the safe, and then broken open the safe, and that it hadn't been like, just a fucking motorcycle suit sitting on a table. It had been like the Ant-Man suit, and it had been hung up and it had been on display, and he had decided, well, this is the most valuable thing in the room, and he had taken it, and then events had proceeded as normal. And the reason why I think that is because, what if instead of what we got, Hank Pym actually recruited Scott for a suicide mission? He knew this was like, whoever went to do this was gonna die, and he was absolutely not gonna let Hope risk that.
Yeah.
So he just decided, this guy broke into my house, and also, so it happens, like, it's a counterpoint to a scene where he goes to see Darren Cross, and Darren Cross basically, he has the kind of the sly reveal of the Hank Pym Technologies building, and he's put
the
cross on
yeah.
it, and he's basically dominating Hank, and like it's pretty effective. And Hank's like, to Cross, Hank seems kind of shook, but then he turns to Hope, who, by the way, they've already given away that Hope is his daughter and working with him.
Yeah.
He turns to Hope and he's like, yeah, but I've got a backup plan, because Hank Pym's the guy who always has a backup plan. And that's cool and all, but I really feel like this movie would be a lot better if after that, so Hank feels defeated by Cross, and he goes home and he's like, well, what the fuck do I do now? Like, Jesus Christ. Like, he's actually done it. The maniac has done it, and maybe I am old, maybe I have lost a step. Somebody breaks into his house that night, and gets all the way to the Ant-Man suit, and he decides, like, he's like sitting in his chamber with all his screens, and he's watching the guy. He's like, oh my god, how did he think of that? He freezes the door and like blows it off his head. He's like, wow, what a clever, this guy's knows what he's doing.
Got what it takes.
Yeah, and then he's like hovering over a button to be like, drop the shutter.
Drop the ants.
Yeah. And he's like, no, and he lets him go. And then we have then the movie plays out very similar, where like he gets in the bathtub and Hank comes in his head. He's like, okay, trial by fire, bitch. Like, you've got my suit. Let's see what you can do.
Yeah.
But then, like, he feels so defeated by Cross, and he's being a bit irrational, and he's like, I'm going to let this guy have the suit. I'm going to teach him how to use it properly, and then I'm going to send him in there to take the whole place down.
Cross,
yeah, I'm just going to take the whole place down. I know he can break in, and we'll come up with a plan to just fucking burn the place to the ground, because that's his, that's his best. It's like, fine, fuck you, Cross. I'm going to burn the place to the ground. And then instead of Hope already being his daughter and already being on his side, Hope, who we then discover is his daughter, in that when she's having dinner with Cross, and he's trying to get her back on side.
That's where they should have revealed it in this movie. You
find out, and because in that same scene, you find out so much about the movie. You find out that she's his daughter, and you find out that Darren Cross is out of his mind. Like, he's actually before he was just an ambitious guy, cavalier. He's just kind of blinded by avarice. But now you're like, no, he's actually a bit cracked, and his obsession with Hank is dangerous to the point that he's actually going to hurt somebody to prove a point. And so Hope comes up with a better plan and brings it to Hank, whose plan is already engaged. And we get this kind of, I just think the interplay between the three of them would have been a lot better if that's the situation. If Hope and Hank had their reconciliation on screen for us,
Yeah.
And Hank was kind of playing the best friend to Scott, like, I'm going to fix everything, I have all the money in the world, I'm going to bring your daughter back to you, but you're probably going to die because my mission's crazy. But so she wants to do something more espionage, more subterfuge, more subtle, like it's not going to work, you can't just burn the building down, he'll have a backup plan, we have to be more smarter than that, Dad. And so she doesn't trust Scott because Scott's just a common criminal, and we'd have this sort of, we'd have an interesting relationship, something to hook us,
Yeah.
Whereas instead, it's like he wakes up and she's standing over his bed, and you immediately everything's just given to you straight away. Like her and her father are working together. Here's the entire plan. We have blueprints and everything.
Well, we already know that they're working together, and because just after, like, when they're introduced, they seem sort of antagonistic to each other, and then immediately it's revealed that she's his daughter, and then after that propaganda video plays with the Yellow Jackets, that's when Hank goes to Hope and's like, we gotta do something. Like, how close is he? Is he close? And she's like, yeah, we have to like accelerate our plans or whatever.
And like they could still have that conversation where it could just be a father appealing to his daughter. I need you to tell me, how close is he?
Yeah.
And she's like trying to defend him. She's like, I work for this company. This is our boss now, and he's doing good things. And he's like, Hope, he's crazy. You see that, right? And she doesn't. And she Dad, get the fuck out of here. Like, this guy is going to bring us into the next millennium.
Yeah.
And then she has the dinner with him later, and she's like, he's crazy. Yeah, he's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not a screenwriter, but I just feel like that would have been a more compelling story.
Yeah.
And it was in there, everything that it needed to be was in there. And then, of course, if we got to see Hank and Hope reconcile on screen, which we kind of did when he told her about her mom, but I feel like there needed to be a before part, because at that point she had already accepted him. He even tells, like, when your mom died in that plane crash, my life fell apart. It's like, I know you're lying to me, and she's accepted it, and she's grown up, she's moved on. No, I really feel like it would have been better for them to have an arc, because Scott doesn't, like, not really.
Yeah.
He went to jail for doing something that was like altruistic but irresponsible, and he ends the movie by doing something altruistic but irresponsible.
But it works out this time.
But it works out, which is kind of the Marvel way. But I just feel like if that's where you're going to go with Ant-Man, just keep him kind of silly.
No, I imagine there's got to be some growth in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Maybe, but the Wasp is there. That's what I'm saying. Like, it seems like Hope is the more compelling character. Like, which makes me wonder, like, why didn't you just why did she Ant-Man? Why didn't she Ant-Woman? Well, why didn't it just be the Wasp? Like, But yeah, I don't know. That's just something that occurred to me, and since we were at that part of talking about the story, hey, I made a point, and I came all the way back to what I was trying to say, and I just made it. I've been working on that, you guys. Also, in this scene, immediately after the propaganda video, Cross kills a guy. He shoots him with a thing.
The guy who questions him.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's a suit.
And he's like, he puts his hand, he's like, I want to talk to you more in private about that.
Yeah.
And then the guy is in the bathroom, turns around, Cross is there.
Yeah, this scene puts Cross in the just stupid villain category. Like, some guy questions him and he kills him. Like, it's just like, oh, it's just a stupid suit. Instead of just like brushing it off or whatever, he follows him into the bathroom and shrinks him, and he explodes or turns inside out or whatever.
Well, he doesn't just say it's a stupid suit. He makes the point that what if our enemies get a hold of this technology?
Oh, yeah.
Which kind of, and then there's a couple of like military people in the room going, yeah, what if? And Cross feels like he's losing the room for a second, which is why he kind of, I want to talk about that. You're making interesting points, but shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
No, but what I wondered about this, you're right, actually, that is kind of a dumb supervillain move. Was that the first guy that he ever killed in his life? Because has he had reason to kill a person before?
I don't know. He seems very cavalier about it.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I'm just wondering, like, I can't think of a reason why he would have had to murder somebody before. Maybe he had, again.
Yeah.
Flashbacks would be handy. But that's the first person we see him kill, and he seems totally chill about it.
Yeah, he's literally like psychopathic about it. No emotion or anything.
Which would be fine if they played him that way. But by the end of the movie, he's like a raging maniac, like properly screaming at everybody about everything.
Yeah.
But then they chop that again, and when he shows up in Scott's daughter's bedroom, he is chilling. He's terrifying, and he's so fucking calm. So yeah, it's weird. I just pick a tone, like stay in the lane. Yeah,
that could be the Edgar Wright versus.
It could be, actually. Because that's, again, it could have been that Edgar Wright made a movie where Cross was a little bit more upbeat,
Yeah.
And then they were like, no, we need to make sure everybody understands that he's the villain, because the fact that he's trying to sell technology to kill people isn't enough.
It isn't clear enough.
People won't get that.
Especially not after, Hydra's been revealed to still be here in Civil War.
Yeah.
And they're the definite bad guys.
Yeah, the Edgar Wright scenes are so much better than the other ones. It's just, we watch the movie while we're like talking, it's silent in the background so you can't tell, but like every so often I'll look over at like what's going on in the movie at the moment, and sometimes it'll be like a regular scene, and sometimes it'll be like, I'm pretty sure Edgar Wright directed that scene. He's inimitable. Like there's nothing. It's like a Wes Anderson film. Like an Edgar Wright film.
Yeah.
And they're better than most films. Like they're just subjectively more interesting to look at. But yeah, did Hank put out the items that Scott would need to complete the task of breaking in?
That I had that question cross my mind as well on this watching of it. I was like, did he like leave those things there? But I think maybe not. Maybe he's just like, let's see what he can do with what, like, he's got to get through this door. Because like Scott could have brought tools with him. He could have had tools to get through the
like the kitchen stuff. I get, because all he just finds some sellotape. He finds like glue or whatever.
Yeah.
And a single metal ring of some
yeah,
kind.
like a key ring.
And he makes a fingerprint thing. That seems like something that a smart guy could come up with on the fly. But when he gets into the basement, did he bring liquid nitrogen with him?
I think so, because he knew there was a safe.
Okay.
And
but he didn't know it was a safe made out of the Titanic.
Yeah, but he bought like a safe drilling drill and I guess nitrogen to freeze things, because if you're cracking a safe, maybe that's useful.
Okay.
Maybe he brought some other tools as well that he didn't use.
I just remember in both cases, like when he's doing the fingerprint thing and when he's getting to the safe, both scenes there was like a thing of him going around the room and just picking items off of shelves, and
oh yeah, that's true.
His
yeah, well he picked up an inflatable mattress and a sleeping bag, so that the door would fall on the mattress and the bolts would hit the sleeping bag to protect him.
Which they almost don't.
Yeah.
He almost loses his head.
Yeah. They make a big point in this scene of it being a safe from 1910, made out of the same steel as the Titanic. What? It's 100-year-old safe.
Yeah.
A regular drill would probably be able to get through it now.
Yeah, you could probably do it with a chainsaw, dude. Like, I don't know why you're taking it so seriously.
It's 100 years old.
Yeah.
If it was like a super modern day safe, then I'd be like, oh my god, it's so impressive and scary. But it's 100 years old, it's just metal.
Yeah. Like you could just cut through that shit. It doesn't have the fail safes that you would have now.
Yeah, like a diamond tip drill bit, just go through it.
I guess they were just setting up that Titanic joke, because it wasn't even just the fact that he made the point that, you know, what destroyed the Titanic. It was that everybody in the van got to make a subsequent joke.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that's sort of what those guys are for. And oh my god, they were good at it. Yeah, they were like, because obvious. I always find obvious comic relief very annoying. Like whenever somebody is clearly the comic relief, I automatically dislike that character.
Yeah.
But in this movie, oh my god, no. Michael Pena and
they fit really well.
Yeah, it works really well. It's because Scott's kind of a moron. Like, he's got a degree in something.
Yeah, electronical engineering or something like that.
But he's kind of a dope a lot.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that his friends are dopes also.
Yeah.
And they all play it so well. They really do. I love that the Russian guys. The only other thing that I can think of that the Russian guy was in was The Dark Knight as the Joker, as like the guy pretending to be the Joker.
Yeah.
I thought that's an interesting career right there. But yeah, he pulls it off, gets the suit, takes it home, turns himself small.
I would put on the suit as well. If I'd broken in somewhere and stolen a suit, I'd be like, I'm gonna try on this suit.
Try it on. So number one, it fits, which is weird.
Yeah, it's the same build. Maybe that's one of Hank's categories. Is like, I need a thief who's the same build as me.
I don't know. Like that is a leather biker suit.
Yeah.
If that doesn't, unless you are the exact correct fucking dimensions, that shit's not going on you as smoothly as it does. But yeah, and the first thing I thought, like, so he's looking at his hands. Now, first of all, he doesn't immediately register that these are buttons that do something. Like, he just looks at them like, what?
Yeah.
And then it goes back to him and he's like trying this one, he tries it again, and then he tries this one, and he shrinks them. Those buttons are such a liability. Like, it is so easy to touch one of those accidentally, right? Like,
I think so, yeah.
Come on. They're so large, and they're in the exact place that when something happens to you unexpectedly, you will clinch that. You will do this. You will, like, make a fist.
Or if you're trying to grab something and you're like, oh, now I'm trying to...
Yeah, if you try to put your hand on something and then... Like, maybe it has to be your own thumb, but, like, you could... Oh, there's so many ways that you could accidentally push that button.
Yeah, maybe there's something in the thumb that, like, completes the circuit or something. But yeah, it does seem like a weird place to put a button.
and he goes on his like adventure where we had lots of issues with the kind of how does the suit work, because like
so at the start they say it shrinks the distance between atoms, their relative distance.
Yeah.
It shrinks them. That's, okay, that's fine. So it doesn't like you don't lose any mass. You still weigh the same. But if you shrink down to that size and you still weigh the same, you will just go through whatever you're standing on, and probably the earth, and just keep sinking.
Which, funnily enough, is a point that Hope makes in the movie. Is that you're now this size, but you have this much mass. So you're like a bullet. Like if you're moving fast enough, you'll go through things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so in this first scene, when he gets launched out of the bath and he lands on the floor, the tile cracks.
Yeah.
Which means he weighs enough.
He weighs enough to crack a tile.
But then when he falls through his own floor and into the dance party downstairs,
and he falls further because he's falling like a story now. Like he falls further than just from the bath.
He lands on a turntable and the record just sort of skips a bit and keeps going, and he has to like run along the turntable. And then he falls on the floor and he's dancing up, like jumping over people's feet. But you're like, if he weighs as much as Paul Rudd weighs and he's jumping his entire body weight, not like stepping on someone's foot, his entire body weight is going on these people's feet. Why
it's such like a tiny cross section. Yeah. It's gonna go through their foot like a bullet.
Yeah, so at the very least, why isn't anybody going, ow? Like, there's an entire man standing on my foot.
Someone even like steps on him at one point and he just sort of pushes them off.
Yeah,
it's wildly inconsistent.
Yeah. And I mean, it's fine because it's nonsense science anyway. Like, this isn't something that's possible. But
yeah, because if you start shrinking things down together, eventually they're just going to form like neutron star material, neutronium, and it'll just turn into a neutron star or a black hole.
So maybe Mjolnir is actually made out of thousands of Ant-Men.
Yeah, that's
probably what it was. In fact, that's probably how he'll make his next hammer.
Yeah,
you heard it here first. And then he lands on a car, makes a tiny little dent, turns into his normal self, makes an even bigger
makes a huge dent.
And then Hank Pym offers him like, I want you to be Ant-Man. Like I have a job for you. Like keep the suit, and I'm gonna call you, and there's something I want you to do for me. And he's like, nope. He immediately packs up the suit. Like it's literally, it was actually really funny. It's a literal refusal of the call that he just takes it off, packs it up, runs back to the house.
Does the exact same like infiltration of the house with the parkour moves and everything,
and then puts it back. And then I assume Hank called the police, so you get caught in his way.
No, Hope called the police.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, so that's a point they make, that Hope, like Hank's like, and then my daughter had to call the police on you.
Oh okay, because she doesn't trust him. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Because she wants to do the mission.
And that too, yeah. Which again, I know he's afraid that she'll die, like her mom died, and she doesn't know how her mom died. But then again, he's an old man, and she knows jiu-jitsu. So if she wants the suit, and she has a plan, which she clearly does. I mean, the plan seems to be her plan.
Yeah.
And he's just come up with the bits she's missing. Like, I assume what actually happened was she came to him with this plan, being like, I need the suit. And I would have loved to have seen that scene.
Yeah, or probably off screen what happened was she was working with Cross.
Yeah.
And then eventually she does realise that he's crazy, and she does go back to her father. It's like, we have to stop him.
Yeah.
But we don't get any of that in the film.
Yeah, we just get, exactly, which... there's a bunch of reveals, and I'm not like super in favour of reveals, because sometimes movies use them as a crutch to like
to keep you hooked.
Yeah, make things seem more interesting than they are. But in this movie, I felt like they really should have used them. Like they had some great reveals up their sleeves that they could have used, and instead they were like, "No, here's all the information straight up front."
Yeah,
Edgar Wright probably would have done that. But yeah, I wish we'd had that scene where she'd like come home and be like, "Give me the suit," you know. And I guess they couldn't have that scene because if he said no, she would have kicked his ass because he wouldn't have been able to stop her. I don't think anybody could have stopped her. The only thing that's stopping her is like that fatherly authority,
Hank's her father,
which I don't know. It's just kind of bullshit cop out, to be honest. But I really liked the really funny literal on-screen refusal of the call, where he literally says no. It's like, I have a job for you. Nope.
I'm out. I'm done.
Take it back. Don't want it. And that was nice.
Yeah.
And then we also find out that, so Scott, like basically Hank walks Scott through the plan. his first thought is, let's call the Avengers. Like, the Avengers are the obvious people to sort this out.
Yeah.
He's like, no, it has to be us, don't trust Stark. He's like, alright, like, why don't you do it? And Hank establishes that Ant-Man have an expiration date. Like,
Yeah, the
there's
suit
a
takes
best
its toll.
before. There's only so many times you can do this before you can't do it no more. Which I wonder, will Ant-Man even survive Infinity War or live long enough in the MCU for that to matter? But I wonder, will that ever come back? You know, in Phase 4, Phase 5, if Ant-Man's still around, like, will there be a kind of Ant-Man's losing his mind?
Going crazy, just like Cross.
Or like, will whatever her name is, his daughter in the movie, become the new Wasp?
Cassie.
Cassie. Yeah, that's something that seems like it ought to be more important, but just something Hank says, Scott accepts, move on.
Yeah,
with the movie.
it's kind of a throwaway here, but yeah, I do hope it does come back later on.
Especially because Scott's not showing the same kind of restraint I'd assume Hank did when he was Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Because he's straight away like, you know what, I figured I had to use the regular to make myself big.
I'm going to make myself big now.
I think it'll work. Yeah. Anybody got any orange slices? Yeah, do you know, Civil War is the next movie.
Yep.
Like, this is happening really fast. I know we haven't actually been uploading these week by week. I'll have to try and like actually get them online before Infinity War comes out. But yeah, Jesus, this is if like, I guess just because it took like 15 years to get here in real time, but the
pace is quickening.
The pace is quickening, and also there doesn't actually seem to be as much time between. There doesn't seem to be as much in-universe time between the movies as it felt like, because I was watching them all a year apart or like 6 months apart. It feels like stuff. I guess it feels exactly like the point that Vision is gonna make in Civil War, that everything is accelerated. Like, it started off and the movies were all like decent 6 months or so apart. Now everything's happening like at such an exponential rate.
Yeah.
That's worth bearing in mind. Don't know what point I'm trying to make, but I'll just stop myself there so I don't digress.
Yeah. Speaking of the Avengers, we do have a scene in this movie.
Oh, the Falcon scene!
The Falcon scene.
I was laughing almost immediately.
When I saw that in the cinema, I was like, oh my, like, when they're like, oh, we just gotta raid this warehouse in upstate New York, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And then, like, flying
Didn't
over.
you say this was an old abandoned warehouse?
And you see the A, and you hear the Avengers sting. Oh, it's perfect.
It's so good.
And then Scott does what, like, an everyman superhero would do. Hi, I'm Scott.
I'm Scott. Did he just say hi? I'm Scott.
Like, that's probably what I would do, and that's just like, oh my god, that's the Falcon.
That's the Falcon.
Hi, I'm Scott. I'm gonna save the world. Can I take this?
It was so well played. I don't think, and like, I assume it was like a scheduling thing. Anthony Mackie was the only person they would get, and also they couldn't afford to get like an A-list guy. But I also, at the same time, think nobody could have played that scene any better than Anthony Mackie, because he just has that kind of that dry humor that works really well with Paul Rudd's dry humor.
Yeah.
And they played it off each other so well, and the scene is just fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, it's so good.
It's just Ant-Man going, sorry.
I don't want to do this.
He can't see me. I can see
I can see you. It's like, oh, yeah, and the fact that like he. First of all, like, that Falcon just so happened to have these goggles, which, I mean, I guess, okay, everybody has crazy cool tech, but these goggles that can, like, magnify an ant.
Yeah.
Like, he's the size of an ant, which is pretty small. Like, it's hard to see ants at the best of times.
I mean, those goggles would have to have some pretty good optics in them, like some big lenses.
And then to track him when he's moving at, like, crazy speed.
Yeah.
Apparently he can also move crazy speed.
Sometimes it takes him like 10 seconds to run the length of a gun barrel, but then other times he can jump like across like a car or something.
It's kind of nonsense. It's the wildly inconsistent nature of
shrinking.
Matter shrinkage.
Yeah.
I wonder, was Civil War being filmed at the same time, because I'm just going to jump straight ahead to the end post-credit scene, which was that Anthony Mackie, like, it's the scene where Bucky has his hand trapped
in the
vice thing, and Cap is like, Iron Man's not going to understand this, or like Tony's not going to understand this, and we're alone, and we've nobody. Like, this is it's just,
and the Accords won't even let him help.
Yeah, and so we're in this by ourselves, and he's like, well, I might know a guy.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, was that just I'm wondering what the timeline is here. Like, were they filming Civil War and they knew that like they were going to have Ant-Man? I mean, I know they knew they were going to have Ant-Man in, but they didn't know that Anthony Mackie was going to be the guy to call him and bring him into the fold.
I'd say so.
Because if that's the case, then this scene was expertly done.
Yeah.
Because like, it establishes the fact that he's a very powerful character, but also like a good guy, because his first instinct is to be like, "Hi, I'm Scott. Sorry, but I'm gonna need to steal this thing that you got." Which technically,
I'll bring it back.
I'll bring it back.
But
technically, it belongs to Pym. I don't know. I think it gets destroyed. It
Yeah.
gets imploded by
Imploded.
Black Hole C4.
Yeah.
Which is a thing that exists in the universe now.
I guess it's because of their shrinking technology. They just exploded and then shrunk the building. The same like they did with Cross at the end. He sort of imploded as well.
Yeah, that was a brutal death, especially to happen in a child's room in full view of a child.
Yes, and like not all at once. In like
he loses that
random
one
pieces.
arm. Yeah, like that arm.
First he
shrinks
uses
all
like
the
the
way
upper part of his arm and then the rest of it.
yeah, he just like collapses in on himself. It was proper like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yeah.
Like I was not expecting this to be as graphic as
Yeah.
it was.
Very body horror-esque almost.
It's not that often you rob a place and then get invited back. So they get like, first of all, they have this ridiculous montage scene where Hope is trying to teach him jujitsu while Hank is trying to teach him
The suit.
how to communicate with ants.
And
They're both trying to teach him how to use the suit to jump through keyholes. You can't learn jiu-jitsu in a few days. I don't know how complicated it is to communicate with ants, but it seems like he picks it up way too quickly.
Yeah.
And jumping through keyholes actually to me seems like that would be the easier part, because
you run, jump at the keyhole and make yourself small.
like that's
I guess the hardest part there is overcoming the mental block of jumping out a door.
he doesn't seem to have any hesitation though. He throws himself at that door.
That's true.
But yeah, so we have this like I understand that every male Marvel hero has to get his shirt off and try to compete with Thor, but I don't think it was necessary here. And also, like I said, you don't learn jiu-jitsu in a few days. Like, he was never going to be a competent fighter by the end of this training montage.
Yeah.
So what was the point of it? And I probably would have budgeted all that time for the ant stuff, like learning about ants. Also, like learning about ants. Like, he learns how to communicate with ants.
Yeah.
And there's lots of scenes of him like running with ants and just being like an ant commander. I would have had a scene of them explaining the difference between a crazy ant, a bullet ant, and a warrior ant. And
I mean, they go through it quickly during the montage. They like say the scientific name, and then these are crazy ants. They're good at conducting electricity. These are the bullet ants. They hurt when they bite you.
I don't know. I would have gone into more of that instead of the shirt off scene, because it was pointless and didn't really.
Yeah, it was also there to lay the groundwork between the Hope Scott relationship.
I suppose so, but there's no reason that they couldn't have done that over some nice, delicious ants, like, and also
especially because we have that later where Scott and Hope have that heart-to-heart talk in the car, and then she's the one who like gets him to break through and actually control the ants.
Exactly, and then.
Well, here I've got another thing to say, because right after that we get the reveal, the wasp reveal from Hank about how she died.
Oh right, yeah.
Laying the groundwork for going subatomic and entering the quantum realm. And after that scene, you know, Hank and Hope, like they're sharing a moment, and we get a Marvel quip. That is a meta Marvel quip about Marvel quips ruining emotional scenes. And this is like one of the points I made earlier, where this film knows about like things that people ask about in the films and jokes about it self-referentially, and it's amazing.
It is really amazing.
It's like I just ruined this scene, didn't I?
But they're kind of looking at each other and finally coming to terms with the fact that and he's like, this is awesome, this is really good,
breaking down some walls,
and then they look at him and he's like, I ruined it, didn't I?
Yeah.
Which
is exactly what we complain about in other Marvel films.
But then, being Paul Rudd, the most charming man in the universe, he does this weird thing where he just puts up both of his fingers and he's like, I'm gonna make some tea. And sort of, it's the perfect, because he ruins a moment, recognizes that he's ruined a moment,
Yeah.
references his ruination of the moment, and then actually kind of redeems
Yeah.
his ruining of the moment, which just proves that when you put some fucking effort in,
Yeah.
you can make a good movie, or you just let Edgar Wright make it. And yeah, so they have the montage thing. Anyway, they get to a point where they're about to execute the plan, and they realize that they need 3 more guys.
Yeah, because they don't have enough men to do everything. They don't have enough people to do
They
it.
need-
Because Cross shows up.
Yeah,
During
at the
their
house,
like planning stage, Cross shows up to kill Hank.
dressed as a Nazi.
Yeah, he's got like a leather jacket on.
Leather "I'm gonna murder you" jacket. There's
Yeah.
definitely a gun in this jacket.
Oh yeah. And he just showed up inside the house, like standing
You gotta
there
lock your door.
reading.
Yeah,
And that's really creepy.
it is really creepy, and you get the sense that he knows what's going on, and he's just playing it off. And then later
Yeah.
you find out, yeah, of course
Yeah,
he knows what's going
that's
on.
exactly what's happening. Yeah, so he shows up and then he calls Hope and is like, "I'm tripling security, I'm closing all the exterior vents because I know Hank's got a suit, but I'm not telling you that I know he's got a suit." And then
That's all. I wonder. Yeah, but then I guess then he knew that Hope was in on it also, and that was
Yeah.
he was spinning her at the
Yeah.
same time. Yeah.
because he said, "I saw you there. I wasn't ready to kill you yet, but I think I am now." Later on in the film.
That is true. You're correct. But then, yeah, they realize that they're going to have to send Hank in to kind of run interference.
Yeah, through the water mains.
No,
Hank.
Scott.
Oh yeah, Hank's in.
So they're going to have to send Hank in to run interference. Hope is already going to be in there.
Yeah.
Sort of. She's the one who's going to change the water pressure or whatever. And Scott's going to go in through the water main, which means they need someone to be security, someone to be like their eyes in the sky, and someone to be their wheels on the ground.
Yeah.
Enter the trio of wombats.
Yeah, the Wombats 3.
Who basically get to be us in context of discovering Iron Man.
Yeah.
So like it's nothing to Hank and Hope, like this has been their whole lives. But like these 3 guys come in and then Scott walks into the room and he's wearing the Ant-Man suit, like, "Wow man, that looks dope. That is a great looking suit." It's like, it's gonna get scary.
It's gonna get
Like,
weird.
Yeah. He's like, "Wow man, I never get scared," and he pushes the button and he's gone.
Oh, that's some David Copperfield shit.
What? How did you do that, man? And then he like shows up on Michael Pena's shoulder and he's like, "Don't freak out.
Yeah.
Look at your shoulder." And then they all just lose it.
Yeah.
And apparently she had to give them a Xanax and tell them a story to get them to go to sleep.
I think one of my favourite lines there is the interaction between the wheels on the ground guy and Hank, where it's like, "Well, we robbed from you. Well, we broke in here. I let you break in here." Well, one could say, "We let you let us break in here."
Yeah, the intense self-belief that only the ignorant
Yeah.
can possess. Yeah, they inject. It's interesting because there's something very somber about this house. Like it's described as like a spooky old house by the guys, and there's something very somber about it because obviously this is sort of still to this day like a memoriam to whatever her name was. Did you ever say her name?
I can't
The
remember.
Wasp, Mrs. Pym. They like Hope doesn't live here, but she seems to be here all the time, and it's very dour. Like it's a very sad place. There's been a lot of life in the house, and then these 3 show up, and suddenly there's like they're having fun. Like this is gonna be a fun mission. Like I can't wait for.
They
this
all
shit.
get like hot cocoa and stuff.
Like they all kind of celebrate life in a way that seems to have just left the Pyms behind, and kind of do a lot to reinvigorate the excitement for the finale because this is the point where Cross changes from being a sort of menacing, intimidating figure into being a caricature of just evil, and that's where like a lot of people would just lose interest because suddenly his motivations are irrelevant. He's just evil.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And also Hank sort of like there's supposed to be an intense relationship between the 2 of these because he is like the son Hank never had.
Yeah.
Which says a lot about Hank's relationship to his daughter as well because
Yeah.
he doesn't even rate her as like a progenitor, like as progeny. Like I should have had a son is basically. But none of that pays off. Like they kind of set it up, and like Cross, the actor playing Cross, does a lot to kind of try and sell that aspect of it, but then none of it pays off.
Yeah.
Like, and so the final act is the character with the least investment, doing the most work, and taking the most risks, and he's the guy who we're following and we're supposed to care about, but he doesn't have any connection to Cross.
Yeah.
He barely has any connection to Hank or Hope, except for the fact that he's kind of into Hope at this point.
Yeah. And he's doing this mostly to get enough money to
His daughter,
see his
who
daughter.
at this point we haven't seen for about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And the closest he's gotten to his daughter is her current stepfather,
Yeah.
who locked him up and is now sort of is now kind of figured out something weird's going on.
Yeah, he's
Hank is
chasing him
involved.
because he broke out of prison, and Hank showed up as his lawyer.
Yeah.
In inverted commas, and now he's like, "That's not a lawyer. That's Hank Pym."
Yeah, and for some reason decides to stake out Pymtech instead of Hank's house.
Well, I guess like maybe there was the big event. Maybe that was knowledgeable. There's going to be a big news conference or whatever reveal in the Pymtech building, so Hank's got to be there. So we'll go there to
Except
catch
it's
him.
not. There was the news. There was like a press briefing or whatever. There was like a demonstration earlier in the week. This is the sales. Like this
That's
is he's
true.
actually selling directly to the Hydra guys.
Yeah.
Nobody else is there. He's
Well, there's a lot of people there
yeah, but,
initially. I don't know why there's a lot of people there, but there are a lot of people there.
like maybe there was an earlier version of the movie where there was a party or something. and
Yeah.
suddenly it's gone now.
Yeah, because there's like loads of guards and like people walking around and stuff.
Yeah,
More
that's
than
the point.
just the Hydra guys.
Yeah, that is a weird amount of guards to have at a place that ought to be closed at night.
Yeah,
Anyway.
especially when you're selling to like one group of people.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a confusing scene. But anyway, the point is, we get into the final act, and the stakes are weird. Like it's
Yeah.
weird. Like I'm not sure what to care about because
You would get a lot of different things are going on.
yeah, and Darren Cross is not Scott Lang's nemesis. Like he is Hank's nemesis, and Hank sort of isn't. Like he's there, and he puts himself in the room to kind of get under Darren Cross's skin, and then
Yeah.
it turns out that this was all an elaborate ruse, and Darren Cross wanted him there so he could shoot him after he got the suit, which is really clever and it's really cool. But I don't know, just emotionally, it felt like the movie kind of checks out in the final act, which is why I really appreciated having the Wombats 3. Hey, I brought it back. Really appreciated having the Wombats 3 in this final act
Yeah.
because they're the ones who kind of bring life to what's going on.
Yeah, they do.
And yeah, what's going on is suddenly
A heist, the actual heist, the
actual
main heist.
which they just do a lot more than they needed to. Like, this seems like it'd be a lot easier if it was just a small guy sneaking in.
Yeah, but I guess like Cross knew that they were going to use an Ant-Man suit to sneak in,
Yeah, but they didn't know.
or
He
suspected.
knew. Well, yeah, but I don't know. It just seems like a very elaborate plan. I understand that it's a heist and there needs to be like a guy in a car looking at a computer and doing
Yeah.
stuff and uploading whatever to wherever. It needs to be really important. Push spacebar.
Yeah,
But it just seems like there's way more. There's a lot of redundancy here, and ultimately the only part of the plan that pays off is that they blow up the building, which they destroy all the servers, but then they blow up the building as well.
yeah, they blow up the building, which I just also realised why it shrank, because the Cross particle was in the building. They had loads of tubes filled with the Cross liquid,
Yeah.
the yellow Cross liquid, and once that goes off, it implodes things or makes them shrink.
Wouldn't that be bad? Again, this is another physics conundrum, but like, if you shrink a building which has quite a lot of mass down to like this size, like that's how black holes are made, right? You take something that's like, I'm not saying that it would make a black hole, but you take something
If it
that's
got
like,
small enough,
got a
it
lot
would.
of mass and you shrink it down to the size of an ant. That's going to create problems, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you
in
did,
space time.
if you shrunk the Earth down, I think a sphere a couple millimeters or something across, if the Earth, all the mass of the Earth was inside that, it would be a black hole. So you have to get pretty small for a black hole. But yeah, it's like weird things would happen if all of the mass of the building suddenly was in one point.
That's what I said. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It's cool. Like
Yeah.
we've seen so many explosions that it was nice to see an implosion.
Yeah.
Why not? But yeah, it turns out to be a trap. He like goes through his weird Death Star trench run and
Yeah, he literally like dives down a trench
Yeah.
to a laser grid.
and gets in, and then it turns out actually this is what I wanted all along.
Yeah.
You're also gonna have to get him out of the suit somehow, dude.
Yeah. Well,
Which means you're gonna have to open the thing up, is what I'm saying, and he can like shrink or grow or like escape.
Also, already established in this movie so far is that you can put on these suits in less than 10 seconds.
You can put on these suits lightning fast, hella fast.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Literally, he's doing look when Cross gets away at the end and Scott gets onto the helicopter and he's like incapacitating everybody else. He turns around for like a second, and when he turns back, dude's wearing the entire Yellow Jacket suit.
The only saving grace that I've come up, my headcanon for this, is that Cross practices putting on the suit because he wants to be powerful. It's like, I gotta be able to, use this suit really well.
Maybe. I thought maybe, but it wouldn't work because there's lots of like panels and.
Or if he was wearing it already.
Underneath? No.
No, wearing like a version of the suit underneath his like regular suit.
Well, I thought maybe it was like in Neon Genesis Evangelion, where they have to wear these suits before they get into the robots. There's a show called Neon Genesis. Do you watch it?
I haven't watched it, but I know.
So it's like kids have to get into these robots and fight angels.
Yeah.
But in order to, before they do that, they have to put on these suits that are like really form-fitting. But actually, before you put them on, they're like crazy big sacks, and like
you step
get
into them
them,
and they just
push a button, and they compress to you. I thought maybe it was something like that, but there's so much like paneling and hard parts to it that I don't think it could have worked that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just obsessed enough to. I'm always trying to put it on. It's still kind of silly. I think, and especially in this movie, this like the epitome of silly. I would have liked to have a scene of Scott turning around that he's like mid.
He got like a leg in,
trying to get it on, and Scott like tries to stop him, but he figures out a way to get it on without Scott stopping. Like, look, he literally could just be holding Scott at bay while he's like zipping it up and shit. That would have been hilarious and added some character.
Yeah, I mean Scott does it as well when Scott's breaking out of prison, and the ants show up and it's like 10, 9, 8, and then like Scott's like, oh,
puts it on, and the guy
in literally like 4 seconds.
It's pretty nuts, especially if you're gonna have this kind of quick change aspect, then don't make the suits look so difficult to get into, right? Like just make the suits look like okay.
Or like you said, play it for comedy of them struggling to get into it quickly and having their old discarded clothes like on the ground next to them or something.
Shit, where'd his clothes go? Did he get into the suit in his clothes? Shit, that's a good point. But yeah, no, that's it's weird. And also that's where we did the heist and he goes, well, it's like
the most important thing, the tank.
Oh, the tank. So all through the movie they've been establishing the fact that Hank has this tank on a keychain, or like a keychain with a tank on it. That's
like looks like a little toy plastic tank.
That's where he keeps his keys, and he's been carrying it around, and you see. There's a bunch of times where like he puts it down and takes it up. Scott picks it up
establishing
at one time.
shots of the tank.
Scott used it at some point to open a door in the house when he's breaking in, and so basically there's just a bunch of scenes of this keychain with a tank on it that you don't really get the significance of until maybe you figure it out halfway through the movie when they show the blue discs that can make things bigger. So they're trapped. They've executed their plan, and it's kind of gone wrong to an extent. Like some parts have gone right, some parts have gone wrong. But basically, Cross has escaped with the Yellow Jacket suit. Scott's gone after him, but they've already set C4, and the building is going up at
and Hank's been shot.
T minus whatever, and Hank's been shot, and like Hope can't carry him, and she's like, well, I guess we'll just die here together. And he's like, pfft, and takes out his keys. And he's like, well, what? And you see the tank for a second, and you're like, oh my god, I know exactly what's going to happen. Cut to
then we get the nice
cops
answer
outside the building. The cops outside the building, and they look up, and a tank comes through the wall.
Yeah, they're like radioing for help, and there's like this and this and this, and a tank.
And just smashes in the ground, and then right after it, the keychain also smashes into the ground. Which makes me wonder, it's a working tank because it drives, right?
Yeah.
But does that mean that he not only built... Well, no, I assume he bought a tank or whatever, modified it.
Or on one of his missions, just miniaturized one and took it with him.
But that would mean that... No, I guess you could just have a normal size keychain and then bigulate it, right?
Yeah.
I love the thought of Hank Pym at some point having to make a gigantic keychain so that this whole tank ploy would pay off one day.
Yeah.
And that's another, like, I know Hank is supposed to be the straight man in the whole movie, but I would have loved to have, like, they land and he's bleeding out and he's not a lot to say, but it's like, I knew that would pay off someday. Like something, just show us that you're a human, Hank. Like obviously you've been carrying that around and nobody saw it coming, so you've never used that before.
Yeah.
But you've had it for years, so you've obviously been waiting for the day when you would have an opportunity to just pull a giant tank.
A younger Hank, I can see a younger Hank Pym going, "Oh man, this is gonna be great one day.
It's gonna pay off so hard."
And again, that brings up to the point: how much does a tank weigh? Why doesn't it weigh so much when it's in its keys?
You know, if you can break a tile, you should break a turntable, and if you weigh enough as a human to break a tile, then a tank ought to weigh what a tank weighs. Like, yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, Anthony dies.
Yeah.
Anthony's trying to get Scott to the helicopter before Cross takes off, and Cross, 1 in a million shot, because there is a swarm of ants coming at him,
Yeah.
but just opens fire into the crowd and happens to take out the one ant that has a name.
Yeah.
And to be honest, that I was a little sad. Like,
Oh yeah, they did a really good job of like.
when he was like, yeah, giving him the water, he's
Yeah.
like feeding him a little bit of water, and it's enough. I don't know, it was so easy. Maybe we're just hardwired to care about tiny
Yeah.
things.
What's that word when you put human?
Anthropomorphized.
Yes, yeah, they really anthropomorphized the ant,
Yeah, that was a shame.
Yeah.
I'll miss that.
and
out.
it gives you a. Okay, well, if we haven't seen enough of Cross being a bad guy, this is the Cross is a bad guy and he has to die now.
Yeah, because
This
Scott.
is that moment.
Yeah, Scott is even like, you killed my aunt.
You're gonna
Prepare to die.
Yeah.
And then, so they fight on the. Well, they have. First of all, he has the impossible quick change, which like Cross should be a magician.
Yeah.
And then the helicopter, like Cross is. He's completely lost it. He's just
Yeah.
opened fire, and they're like screaming at him, "What are you doing? We're on a helicopter, you marty!" And he's just shooting everybody.
Yep.
And then he starts firing the lasers in his suit, and basically the helicopter is going down.
Yeah, like his suit lasers are like Stark's arm laser from
Yeah.
his Iron Man suit. They just cut through everything.
Yeah. So he just murders everybody except Ant-Man in the helicopter, and so
Yeah.
the helicopter's
And
going
we get
down.
an amazing fight
Where
scene.
they get trapped in a briefcase that gets knocked out of the helicopter, and they're falling down, and for some reason Scott decides to say, "I'm gonna disintegrate you!"
No, whatchamacallit says it.
Oh, the other way,
Cross,
right.
Cross says it.
And the iPod picks it up as playing Disintegration by The Cure. And we get this incredible scene where they're both, as well as the fact that they're trapped in a briefcase fighting while an iPod plays Disintegration to them, they're also falling from a helicopter, and the briefcase keeps getting buffeted by wind and flipped.
Yeah, so they're fighting in zero G inside a briefcase.
And everything's being flipped around, and he's like blowing up polo mints or whatever they are. Like,
Yeah, for creativity and just like, it's just the action in this last scene is
Yeah.
just amazing.
This is another place where I'm pretty sure Edgar Wright must have at least done the storyboarding. But yeah, that briefcase scene is easily one of my favorite fight
Yeah.
scenes in all of Marvel.
Yeah,
It has so much personality. It's so perfect for Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Like, this is the Ant-Man fight scene. So they have the briefcase fight scene. I know everybody likes that they fought on the Thomas the Tank Engine like play table, but for me the briefcase fight scene is just quintessential. Like, it's so perfect.
This another thing I brought from both of those fight scenes is that in all of the other Marvel films, the scale is just getting bigger and grander, and like the stakes are getting higher and higher. And then in the Ant-Man film, it's literally like it takes place on a tabletop. And
Yeah.
that's it. That's the fight. It's like in a room on a tabletop. It's perfect.
It's literally a miniatures war game.
Yeah.
And they and would like, and he even, I don't like. The convenience of when ants show up, like there's a part where
Deus Ex Ant.
Yeah, like Cross is about to shoot, I think Scott or somebody anyway, and ants are suddenly all over his gun and jamming up the hammer.
Yes, but that's because Hope, in the background, Hope like puts on she takes the ear thing
How the
off.
fuck the ants get in the room? It's a vault. I assume it's hermetically sealed.
Yeah, it is. Maybe they came down the shaft after Scott blew it up.
Maybe. But then also in the scene on the tabletop when they're fighting the Thomas the Tank Engine situation, and he runs into like the tall grass, and suddenly it's full of ants.
Yeah.
Where did they come from? How'd they get up from?
It is a movie about Deus Ex Ant.
Yeah. But yeah, no, the fight scenes are incredible, and I love the like whichever director it was that actually filmed it understood that the comedy here is just like cutting out to somebody watching the table and just seeing like these tiny little pew 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 lasers and little explosions, or like when Cross is cowering on the tracks as Thomas the Tank Engine comes towards him and dink, and it falls over.
It's like the sound design as well. When it's tiny, it sounds like a big real train. It cuts out and it just goes dink. It's so perfect.
And it's refreshing as well. And I hope that, I mean, obviously they're not going to have a miniature fight scene between Ant-Man and Thanos, but I hope that because since it's the Russo brothers and they did Civil War, which they did Winter Soldier, which had some proper creative, competent uses of action by bad guys and good guys. Like everybody was working to the peak of their abilities, and it showed. Like it took a lot out of everybody to execute all the fight scenes, which is something that they don't always do. Like they don't always. Sometimes they'll cut back to the good guy and they'll have an injury or they'll be tired and breathing hard. But in this one, it really felt like, from everything, the pacing and just the execution of what the bad guys' plan and backup to the backup plan was, like when, especially in the scene, say in the overpass in Winter Soldier, when they just keep getting pushed back, like no matter what. Like Cap's a very quick thinker and he figures out ways to keep everybody alive, but that's it. He keeps everybody alive and everybody is like surviving everything by the skin of their teeth. And even after there's probably, when we watched it for the podcast, probably the 5th time I've seen it, it still felt to me like anybody could die right now because they are so on the back foot. And in Civil War, I think partly the airport fight scene was so amazing because it was the first time we got to see so many different superheroes in one scene, and so we got to see what it would look like for everyone to use their very different powers
going up against
each other.
Yeah.
So like, on the one hand, I don't think you can give the Russo brothers too much credit because it was the first time anybody had seen this, and obviously it was going to be much more creative because they had to come up with ways for each of these characters to realistically fight each other using the powers they had available. But then in this in this movie, they figured out a way to make the fight not only personal, but very like idiosyncratic. Like only Ant-Man could fight like this.
Yeah.
And I just hope that, I mean, Infinity War's already been made, so it's too late to hope. Let's just see what happens. But I hope that they come up with something kind of equally. Since this whole podcast, all these series of podcasts, has kind of been about building up to Infinity War, I think it's fair to kind of just my hope is that they have the same level of ingenuity when it comes to the fight scenes in Infinity War, because I don't want to see, 60, I guess, heroes go up against 60,000 mooks. Like, I want to see something creative. Yeah. Fucking bring back Red Skull. That would be very creative. I'd be very pleased.
It doesn't even have to be Hugo Weaving.
Doesn't at all. It could be any. It could be Doug Jones, the guy in every mask you've ever seen in every superhero movie. Doug Jones, the guy who can be anybody. But yeah, briefcase fight scene is my fave. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and the comedy, even the way that ends with the suitcase just falling into the water again, it just cuts away.
Splash.
Splash.
And it's a bunch of people having like a backyard barbecue. Yeah, so they fight on the table, and eventually they're kind of relatively evenly matched, and the only thing that stops the fight is...
no, I think the Yellow Jacket suit is superior to the Ant-Man suit, and that's what gives Cross the edge here, because he's got the lasers, he's got, like... It just seems that he has the advantage in the fight most of the way through, I think.
Yes, except for the fact that he doesn't win. You know what I mean? Like ultimately it comes down to Scott is better with his suit.
Yeah, so Scott's better with the suit, but I think the Yellow Jacket suit is a better suit. Okay. Like it's designed for combat.
Sure, but it ends with Scott tossing Yellow Jacket into a bug zapper, which is hilarious in and of itself. But he somehow manages to stop just before actually hitting the zapper part. Yeah. And then Scott rebigulates himself, and the cops show up at the worst possible fucking time, and he tries to
Scott.
Yeah, I'd like to say he tries to kind of explain himself, but what he does is like move quickly towards the police officers. So
like you have to listen.
Like, I'm just gonna say he's lucky he was white, because the guy pulled a taser instead of a gun.
Yeah.
And they're gonna take him downtown or whatever, I guess, and then they get the call being like, we have a cop code at this address, which is Cassie's house, like Scott's daughter's place.
Yeah. A point I noticed here is that Scott said Cassie's name when the cop, the fiance, said the wife's name.
Okay.
When the code was called.
Because it's not his daughter. Yeah, that makes sense. And this is when we get the proper kind of... I guess he's kind of fully ascended now. Like he is the Yellow Jacket. And so he comes into the room, he's calm, he's collected, and he's cold and chilling. Like, he's scary.
Yeah.
And he does have a kind of weird, funny line where she's like, I want my daddy. He's like, I want your daddy too.
Yeah.
Which is sounds a bit sexual, but it comes across very scary. And he does make for a very intimidating presence when he's not being a petulant child.
Yeah. And he has that line as well. Do I look like a monster?
Yeah, and it's another kind of. It's a shame that he wasn't further developed because the actor delivers it in such a way that's an interesting question that I'd like an answer to. Like, does he?
Yeah.
Is he sort of? There's there's so many different ways it could go, but to me, I'm kind of like, she sees me as a monster. I kind of like it, I kind of like it. I'm enjoying being a monster. I'm enjoying this power that I have over people when I'm wearing this suit, which is something that it raises an interesting question about all of the people in Marvel who wear suits and have power over people.
My problem with this fight scene on this watch through, and probably on my first watch through as well, is that the Yellow Jacket suit is animated entirely in all scenes for some reason. It's not like Scott's suit. It's not a real suit. When Cross is just standing there, it's an animated suit, or at least it very much looks like an animated suit to me.
I didn't see that at all.
And I was like, why is it animated? Did it look different and you've CGI'd over it? Did you build a Yellow Jacket suit originally, but then they're like, no, we have to redesign the suit, let's just CGI over it because you've already shot the scenes.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't spot that at all. Shit. Okay.
Yeah, so it just stood out to me. It's like, why? It just takes them a bit out of the like composition of the scene almost for me when it's completely animated like that and they pick up on it. It's like it feels like it's placed there instead of being in there.
Yeah. Okay. No, I didn't cop that at all. But yeah, that had I seen it, that definitely would have bothered me. That's the kind of thing that would bother me for sure.
Yeah.
But this is also, as we said earlier, they established that the only way to get through titanium panels is to shrink yourself to the subatomic level.
Yeah.
And warp through whatever.
Yeah. Just like phase through, like go through the gap.
So he chooses to do this, like kind of sacrifice himself to save his daughter, which is cool, and it's like a very heroic thing. I guess as he's like jumping into, like, so he twists the regulator and he shrinks himself, and he's jumping into the suit.
Yeah.
As like super small.
He's getting smaller and smaller and smaller as he's falling.
He says like, "I love you, Cassie," or "I'm sorry, Cassie." He says something to his daughter, who obviously can't hear it because he's the size of something not big.
Yeah.
I guess this is kind of the emotional payoff. The only relationships that matter in the movie are the father-daughter relationships. So Hank and Hope, Scott and Cassie, and like weirdly, when this fight ends, which I found bizarre, and it cuts back to like when he comes back from the subatomic realm, the stepfather is like on this side of the room, and the girl's in bed alone, having just experienced an incredibly traumatic event, and she's just in bed alone, and nobody's taking care of her, which was bizarre. I understand that it's because Scott needs to then feel that.
Yeah.
But I just feel like before he shrunk himself down, it would have had a much more resounding emotional impact if he first said something to her, because this is the last chance he's going to have to say something to her.
Yeah.
So if he just like clicked the helmet open for a second and said, "I love you, Cassie," and then like maybe the guy who through this whole movie has thought of him as like a failure and a
deadbeat dad,
kind of looked at him like, "What are you going to do?" And then like, he just closes the thing, clicks the button, and like disappears from reality.
Yeah, it would have hit home more. Because we get that, but only we get that. Like,
exactly.
Cassie doesn't get that.
Yeah.
Or the other characters don't get that.
And the thing is, they establish that with it. Like the thing is, he doesn't know what happened. Like the problem with this scene is that it takes place at the subatomic level, so nobody knows what happened here except for that the Yellow Jacket suit malfunctioned. He got sucked in on himself, and then Scott appeared. And I mean, you can infer what must have happened.
Yeah.
But I just feel like. There would have been a much bigger emotional payoff had he first said something, because later after the whole thing they're having like a family dinner and he's there with them, and the guy they're talking about she did a cartwheel or something, and the guy like shows it to him on his phone, and they're kind of like a weird new Neo family unit. Like,
like the happiest of endings that this family can have has happened.
Yeah, and the cop guy says something about like, you were. He's talking kind of in code, but he sort of says like, you were arrested, and your lawyer came to see you.
Yeah, and there was something weird with the cameras.
Something weird happened with the cameras, but your arrest was processed as
correctly,
normal, and basically saying you're free. I've given you a pass.
Yeah, he's saying that that escape, that didn't happen. That was just a mistake by someone.
And I think that would have had a greater, like, that would have hit better had there been that moment just previous to him choosing to sacrifice himself, where the guy like looked up and
they
went,
made eye contact or something.
exactly. I made eye contact, being like, "You're gonna take care of her, correct?"
Yeah.
Especially since immediately afterwards he's like, "A man apart from her." And when, like, if ever a little girl needed a fucking hug, it's when this guy gets sucked up into his own body and her dad disappears.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so he goes into the subatomic realm, and oh my god, did they miss an opportunity? I guess they didn't really know what Doctor Strange hadn't started filming yet. They didn't know what was going to happen. But oh my god, this is the perfect time to, because he makes a not that it was like on purpose, like a retro reference, but like Hank makes a very particular point to say that when you get into the quantum realm, time and space have no meaning.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why Ant-Man in the quantum realm couldn't meet Doctor Strange having his astral projection montage in that same time. Like, so this Ant-Man's still in his time frame and Doctor Strange is his time frame, but at the quantum realm, time is irrelevant.
Matter,
so they just meet each other. They kind of just like apex, like there's a kind of carom, like the apogee, and then they go off on their own tracks, but they kind of have a, not that they even need to say anything, but just like he's going this way, he's going this way, and they see like a guy getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and a guy who's transforming into a million different hands, like, I just thought it'd be amazing. And they could have even done that retroactively in the Doctor Strange acid trip, where he just, one part of the universe that he sees is the quantum realm,
a small shrinking, a guy getting smaller
and further away, and it going like disappearing into this sort of fractal landscape or whatever. I just, because of the similarities between the two scenes, I feel like it's a wasted moment to not.
I do remember when first seeing Ant-Man, I was like, the quantum realm, that has to have something to do with Doctor Strange. Like, the first time I saw it, I was like, that's got to be laying the groundwork for Doctor Strange.
Yeah, it should have. That would have been a great kind of, because then that's a link between Doctor Strange and Ant-Man that they don't even ever have to even talk about it, but it could be, I don't know, maybe it'll come up later that they need to use the quantum realm to attack what's his name, and then Doctor Strange can go, I know a guy who's been to the quantum realm, like that kind of hey Marvel, we're here all week. We can write this shit for you. But yeah, so the villain has a pretty messed up, gruesome ending, which is cool. I feel like they should do that more often. And
I mean, if you're going to like kill off your villain, your one-off, never to be seen again villain, that's a good way to do it.
Make it a memorable death. If that's the least you could do, I reckon. And then he gets a kind of slightly happy family thing, and the movie's over. But then
it's sort of like a happy ending. Hank is left with the hope that one day he might free his wife from the quantum realm. Scott and Hope are a thing, and
Hope is in post credit? It is.
That's the mid credit scene has the Wasp.
But so that's a point I wanted to make though. So there's a mid credits and a post credit scene in this movie, and we've been talking about most of the Phase 2 movies have throwaway, pointless mid credit scenes that don't mean anything and aren't really worth staying for. But this one sets up two movies.
This one is huge. This
one gives you a scene from the middle of Civil War. In fact, the pivotal scene. The scene immediately before the Civil War. Like, it gives you sort of the emotional core of the entire movie, which is these two guys, plus Anthony Mackie, just like making the decision that we're going to have to go against Tony. Like, it gives you that scene. And then, that's the post-credit scene. But then earlier in the mid-credit scene, it gives you, there's a Wasp movie coming. Oh, of course there is. Why would we put him in this if we weren't going to make it a Wasp? There's a Wasp movie coming, and that's going to be awesome. I can't fucking wait for that. I know it's like Ant-Man of the Wasp, like it's, Marvel, come on. Like it's,
just kill it.
Just make it a Wasp movie. Like, what is wrong with you? People with vaginas watch movies, dude. But it's something.
Also, we get the just how this film actually ends before the credits is another
Michael Pena's story.
Michael Pena and Luis story about
how Anthony Mackie is trying to get a hold of Ant-Man. Because I guess he preemptively knew that he might need to call upon somebody outside the Avengers for what was...
Or maybe like the Avengers found out about the whole like cross Hank Pym situation when the Hank Pym building imploded.
That's true, it did.
And they were like, wait a minute, this guy did save the world. Maybe we should talk to this guy.
If only we had a large black man with an eye patch who could recruit people for us. I wonder. Yeah, I'm curious about their recruiting program going forward
Yeah,
because it seems
it's
like
all up to Falcon.
well, no, it seems like Tony's in charge, right? Because
Yeah.
he's the guy. He sort of scouts, recruits, and was going to announce Spider-Man as the new Avenger.
Yeah.
Sort of with no consultation at all,
Yeah.
right? Because in that movie, he brings Spider-Man into it.
Yeah.
Then Spider-Man goes home and has his own life with Iron Man kind of on Overwatch the whole time. And then at the end, Iron Man was literally just called a press conference. It was going to announce a new Avenger.
Yeah.
That everybody else had only met in a fight. Right? Like that's the like literally a child, or at least a guy in a mask with a child's voice, showed up, kicked a bunch of ass, disappeared, and then it didn't happen. But like Tony was just going to go out on national TV and be like, "This guy, this is an Avenger now," and everybody else on the Avengers was going to have to go.
Well, I guess everyone else in the Avengers would be like that, but people in, say, New York would know who Spider-Man would be, because he's like a local superhero.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I'm talking specifically from the point of view of the Avengers. So like, when the Avengers started, Nick Fury recruited everybody. So everybody's story of how did you join the Avengers? Well, Nick Fury heard that I did a heroic thing and came and found me and asked me to join the team. But now it seems like they don't really have a set in stone recruitment policy. Like Scarlet Witch, they sort of brought on board because she's better with us than against us. And the Vision sort of just, there's nothing else for the Vision to do. If he's not in the Avengers, he might as well just go off into space and try and find Krypton or something.
It's just these guys are kind of interesting. I'll hang around here.
Yeah,
because no one could stop him anyway.
But it's just an interesting, like, I know it's probably not something that they were even thinking about, like, because they knew at the end of the movie they weren't going to have Spider-Man join, so it's irrelevant. But Captain America is the leader of the Avengers. Iron Man bankrolls the Avengers, and he owns all the property, and he puts together all of their nifty toys and stuff.
Yeah, that was the case.
That was the case. No, I know. Yeah, but I'm just curious, coming into Infinity War, I guess Iron Man's going to be the leader of what's left of the Avengers.
Of the Avengers, yeah.
And then Steve is going to have all the people he broke out of the raft in Wakanda or whatever.
Yeah.
Wherever
probably being like outcast, still superheroes.
Probably like refugees or something. Or kind of like, you know, if you need them and you've got the money.
We're not the Avengers. We're the 80s.
But yeah, I'm just curious about like how it has literally no bearing on Ant-Man. I'm sorry I'm bringing it up, but like I'm curious what Tony's management style is going to be, because he is notoriously bad at managing.
Yeah.
And I don't see Pepper sort of stepping up to take control of the Avengers.
No, she's got her own company and charitable foundations to run.
So yeah, that's not really relevant to Ant-Man. So Ant-Man, let's bring it back on home. What did you think? How did you like it?
I liked it. Even given that I feel that Cross is like one of the traditional poor Marvel villains, at least in my ears, I like the film. It has its own style. It was like, it's a heist movie in the Marvel universe. It's humor all the way through is like spot on. I don't think there was a joke I didn't laugh at in this entire film.
I was properly guffawing. Like I was finding it difficult to stop laughing and pay attention.
Yeah. It's a really, really well put together film.
Yeah, I liked it a lot too. And like I said, I think that Cross was, I think everything was there, but he was underdeveloped, and because of the performance of the actor who played him, I was willing to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
But I think it's a shame that Marvel just keeps doing this, like that. Like, hopefully they don't do it with Thanos.
Oh my god, if they fucking do it with Thanos after like 15 years.
Like, Thanos better be the fucking belle of the ball. Like, he absolutely should be the star of Infinity War.
Yeah.
And if we don't get,
he needs to be as like inspirational as Darth Vader.
Yeah. And we need to know something about him. So like, I don't know what the plan is for Infinity War, whether he's just gonna show up and start punching people, but like, I would prefer if there was some kind of prologue just to establish his motivations and his plan.
Yeah.
Because I need to know what his plan is in order to care about when the Avengers fuck it up for him.
Yeah.
Or don't. Or or if he actually succeeds with it. And that's sort of, I feel like I knew Darren Cross's plan, No, I didn't, because he tricked everyone, including me. I knew his motivations,
Yeah.
and I didn't know his plan, but that was actually pretty well done, because he managed to, you know, the whole time you're going through and you're thinking, these are the smartest men in the room,
Yeah.
and they're going to pull the rug out from under this guy, and no, he
No.
traps them, and
Yeah.
he's a competent villain, and that's the same thing I really liked about Hydra, just in the Winter Soldier.
Yes.
Hydra and the Winter Soldier are hyper competent, like,
Yeah.
they know what they're doing. That's what I liked here. He was, you know, he kind of fell apart towards the end, but almost every Marvel movie suffers from a bit of fall apart at the end, and
Yeah.
underdeveloped, but had potential. And I just, like, maybe they just didn't want any villain to be too memorable because they wanted to make sure Thanos was the prima donna.
Maybe.
But like, oh, they better be. Like, because we're getting so close now. All we've got left is Phase 3, which is only like 4 movies. Like,
yeah, it's not a lot of movies.
Civil War, Doctor Strange, Thor Ragnarok,
Guardians 2.
Guardians 2,
and Black Panther.
and Black Panther. So 5 movies total, and then fucking Infinity War.
Yeah.
Which, what is it now? It is now the 24th of March, and Civil War comes out in April.
Infinity War at the end of April, yeah.
So yeah, we're actually going to be right on. I know this. That was the plan.
Yeah.
One Marvel per
We
week.
might have to double up one because it got pulled back a bit. The release date got put earlier here,
Oh yeah, you're right.
so we might have to pull back a week or do like 2 in 1 week.
Well, we're doing Black Panther this week.
Yeah.
So okay, but yeah, Jesus Christ. So we've just got to watch 5 more movies, and then
Oh my god! Do you remember when we started this and we watched Iron Man 1?
it's weird because do you remember the first point we made in Iron Man 1 was about how long it's been since we watched Iron Man 1, and now that we're at Ant-Man, I'm like, it feels like a really long time since I watched Iron Man 1.
Can you remember that movie?
That was only, what is it, the 24th? That wasn't that long ago.
That was like at the start of the year.
That was not even, it was literally the first weekend of the year,
Yeah.
so it was not even 3 months ago. It was like 2.5 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, which is a long time and not a long time.
Jesus. Well, we're going to have to figure out what to do when we run out of Marvel movies.
Yeah.
But that's for another week.
There's plenty of Marvel TV shows.
Ant-Man was pretty good.
Yes.
Michael Pena was the greatest.
The star of the show.
And join us next week for
Civil War.
Civil freaking War.
Yeah.
They're just getting right down to it.
Yeah, I imagine that's going to be a good one.
I have been amateur storyteller Danny, and you have been
Amateur theoretical physicist Steve.
and this has been the Saturated Industry Podcast.